So let me talk a little bit about what I wanted to do for Model Cars Magazine, because what I wanted to do and what I ended up doing were miles apart. And the comparing the Avenger to the Pierce Arrow is a perfect example.
Today, we're visiting with Scott Colmer. I've been enjoying your articles in Model Cars Magazine. It's really great to talk to you today.
Thank you for having me. I'm pleased to be here.
I've really enjoyed the Pierce Arrow coverage. You've taken a kit that was a little controversial design-wise, put it together so it's a really neat package. The opening doors are just amazing to let you into that interior.
I only opened one side because I thought, well, a magazine article, if I open two, I'm going to lose my mind and it'll never work. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the hood off right now. And the way I did it was, there's a magnet in there. Thank you, Doug. And they are super thick, so they're kind of a trick to get open. And I left them so they can still slide, so I can open them up a bit and really get that full exposure on the interior.
That's the perfect car for that, to get to see that interior, the way both those doors open, the rear suicide and the front door, when they open, you get just the perfect view. You know, it's like a Thunderbird or a Lincoln or something, or all those cars in the mid-'60s that would allow you to enter that interior unobstructed from pillars and posts.
That's exactly what I was planning. It's mostly kit. It has a really cool dash on it. When Virgil Exner designed this, he went super simplistic and there's no gauges in the dash. It's all stuck in that console. I wanted to keep that and that chrome console running down the middle, that big 60s chrome. It's so fun that way. I used his seats. The clear steering wheels was part of the kit. So I thought, well, if it's clear controls from here on in, so there's a clear shifter. And it's really hard to see, but there's a little button in there that I inset a shifter button. And even the door handles are clear. So I figured every control will be clear. And let's keep it consistent and fun. The trick is that little notch has a magnet behind it. And then these pins are metal. So when it closes, it holds the doors in.
Yeah, because when those doors are closed, they line up so well.
Yeah, that's work. That's hard to do. I'm just going to tell you.
And especially on a car that's basically a light color, that silver would really show door gaps easily. Really, really good craftsmanship on that. You chose silver and your interior color based on?
It's a luxury car. The original Pierce Arrow, the real one from the 30s, was silver and gray. And it was a luxury speed car. At the time, I believe it was supercharged. And it could do 130 miles an hour in the 30s. And that's what he was replicating. So I wanted to pick that up. You know, I wanted to have, this is a luxury car. But it's for a hot rodder guy. You know, you put your family in the back. Maybe you wouldn't even drive, or he or she wouldn't even drive it themselves. That's why there's some Esquire magazines in the back. And there's an Easter egg back there that when I let the Model Cars Magazine forum users pick the car that I would build, and I'd show them 3 different rare kits. And this is the first one they chose. You know, when you start doing this stuff, people start coming out and sharing information. And so we started talking about Virgil Exner and the whole series that he did for Renoir. And somebody posted up the concept drawings for a lot of those kits. They were in Esquire magazine. So I went online and I found that issue, 1960, and tucked in the seat packet is that issue of Esquire that had those concept drawings in it. And it's just like Easter eggs, you know, it tells a story. You have a little fun, you know, and so for the people who know what to look for, they can go in there and go, there it is. I know what that is.
And there's so much that you had with that kit that you improved on, like the window trim. All the plumbing had to be added as well for the engine.
Yes. Super simplistic kit. In fact, this is just the engine that I started with. And I did use the kit engine. But essentially it was that in a flat pan with a radiator and the spares. And I'm like, well, here goes. You know, I just couldn't bear to leave it that way. And so I said, let's take that kit engine and make it fast. And so we added the Loudon supercharger with the belt. And then, you know, if you listen to real car designers like Chip Foose, he talks about repeating themes. And you see it. If you listen to it, whenever you're looking at custom cars, you'll see them start repeating themes everywhere. And in his 37 Ford Impression, there's V8s everywhere on that car, little V8 symbols in the headlights. And I'm like, okay. So I took because the engine is so far away from the radiator, I said, let's get that shotgun tubes. They come into the thing, and then they go shotgun over the bridge and then off to the radiator. And so then I set up shotgun tubes for the plug wires. Anywhere I could run 2 tubes side by side and paint them black, I did it. It's just fun. And again, it's for the people who want to dig.
Right. Yeah. The entire top end on that engine, what you added to that really had an Exner look. The vertical textures, the circular textures, how they all came together. They were almost as if they were taillights or dashboard treatments, but you brought it into the engine compartment. You had the great place right up on top of the engine to display that.
Thank you all. I'm gonna have to confess something. There's a missing part that I couldn't get done in time for the article. It's an engine cover. It's got the double lines. It's over the top. And what happened is, I'm still learning. And I would lay down a 2K clear on top of my silver engine cover, and it just I did something wrong, but it bubbled up. So when I went to strip it, there's a combination in that engine cover of resin cast and plastic. Oh. And it took it apart. And so I had to cast it aside and put in the little covers in time for the article. So the engine cover is still waiting to be finished. But it's nice because the blower pops through the top, and it's got these finned, who had wings on their feet? The Greek god. It looks like wings on the sides with 2 more chrome strips. It's super Art Deco to fall within this stuff. So once I get that cover, these little guys are just liquid taped on. I love liquid tape.
Okay. Tell me about liquid tape.
So this is liquid tape. And I bought this 20 years ago, and I have yet to use it up. But it is, okay, if you're scratch building, there's 2 things you can do to keep parts in place. You can pin them, you can magnetize them, or you can liquid tape it. And they will stay. And you can take them off and reapply them. But the downside is, you see that, I don't know if you can see the brownness there.
Yeah.
You have to remove that stuff. And it is sticky. It's tape residue. You can scrape it, or you can use strong rubbing alcohol, as long as you're not on painted parts. And it'll come off with a Q-tip. But you have to take care of that before you do your final assembly.
Okay, so I've been using like Elmer's glue or white glue for years. So I should use this instead.
Well, I would say try it and see if it fits your needs.
Does this replace that?
Well, I tried white glue, and it'll stay for a while, but eventually it'll pop off. This is a little stronger, but you can still separate the parts. Now, here's another use I found out. So you know how bare metal foil is sometimes not sticky? Dilute some of this in water or alcohol and brush it on the area that's going to receive it. It'll stick. That's what I did with this script, that hand cut script on the back. The supercharged scripts on the fender, those are held on with liquid tape. Up underneath on the headliner is a dome light. Up in there, that's held on with liquid tape. And the reason is I forgot to put it on. I'm like, oh man. And I thought, wait, liquid tape. So I did it. Pushed it up in there, and it stayed. There's a full-on bunch of plumbing in there, like power steering and air conditioning that's in here. And getting all that stuff in an engine compartment is tough. And I knew I wouldn't be able to fish it in afterward. And I needed to be able to move it out of the way, drop the engine in, and then drop it in place. So I put the fittings in with liquid tape. And I pulled them up, I dropped it in, and I could push them down. And they stayed. So
it's good for permanent final assembly,
and
as well as just mocking something.
Yes, you just got to know where you want to put it.
I'm going to give it a try. Thanks.
It's the best. And don't forget, you can put it on the end of a toothpick. And when you're trying to put in that bolt head, it's there you go. You don't have to try and do it with tweezers and watch it disappear.
You've been doing a lot of vintage kits that we had when we were kids, re-imaging them as an adult. What I love about what you do is you take a kit and you go, okay, all those things that are in everyone's imagination, I'm going to put in my build.
When I asked to do this article series for Model Cars Magazine, the intent was to share a kit that's been on someone's shelf for years because they've collected it. And I'm going to build it. What I pitched to the team out there, I said, listen, I want to try to tie the forum into the magazine. So if you go on the forum, I gave them 3 choices of rare kits. And the idea being that, so many people have those on the shelf and they never build them. So we don't know what they're like anymore. So I would say, okay, pick one of these and I'll build it. And I'll just stress how I'm doing. I was going to build them box stock to talk about how they looked when they went together. But that's just not what I can do. I am a snowball builder. I admit it now. That Pierce Arrow was supposed to be box stock, but I can't do it. It's hard for me to stay to the box. Because, well, I could just make this better. I go, well, I could do this. It would be cool, and I can't seem to stop. That's nice. And I think people enjoy, because everybody loves good detail and design. But it makes editors sick. Because they're trying to put a magazine together and they're like, did you finish yet? No, I keep adding stuff.
Right. And it's 8 pages in each issue.
I know. And it was supposed to be like a couple pages.
Sure.
And so then the Avenger, even though I did 2, because I'm like, oh, look, a glue bomb, I can add to this. It's pretty much stock. Both the red one and the drag one, that's how they would look from the box. I think I only changed out tires. And honestly, wasn't as fun. If I had my way, that car would sit a lot lower. I would have tucked it in, maybe Corvair. And the funny car one would have had the injectors up through, and it would have also not been all sky high looking. But I wanted to finally do what I said I was going to do. I put it in a box and put it on the shelf when it was done because I wasn't excited about it.
Wow.
So I guess but the whole point is, the fun of it is adding on to what they did, making it into something that's fun to look at. The members of the forum picked out of 3. And on the second round, they picked this. They picked the Avenger. And I tried to go back to what I was supposed to be doing, which is build a kit, box stock, and show people, how it goes together. But try and do it you do your best. And so because I had this glue bomb, and enough parts, I knew I could build both of them. So on this one, it's pretty straightforward. It's a Volkswagen pan. I did a little bit of dry brushing just to bring out the highlights on the pan. I had to make a couple pieces that were missing out of the interior. It didn't have an emergency brake, so I just took a piece of sprue and filed it down. It did pretty good. The decals, I put them on backwards. I don't know if you can tell that. That is supposed to be here. And there shouldn't be a door line going through the number 2. Okay. But I didn't realize that until way later. I'm like, oh boy, did I mess that up. The engine is a kind of a guessing match. There's no part numbers on the tree, nor are there part numbers on the instruction. And there's a bunch of extra parts in there that are from the Volkswagen Beetle, which would probably be, I'd admire anybody that do that. So I just basically kind of tried to figure it out. And I probably would have done better to have more mock-ups. Because it's pretty vague in there. But I got through it and I thought, all right, Cal Custom Chrome. I left the back off so you can display it. It went together okay. It took some work. I messed around. I did the old trick where you lower the front end by notching the wheel backs because it sits high. This one was missing some parts. This stands actually for this. So I think the wheel wells, floor pan was good. The chassis was good, but the little things, it was missing things. It was missing the windows, but I thought I liked the chassis on it. It's simple, and the red on the black, that's actually gunmetal, and the white headers. And I made sure they cleared everything before I started gluing stuff together, and hogged them out. The wheels came from the parts box, and the fun part of this one was since it was a glue bomb, all this crazy milked up. It was unsavable. So I just sanded it over and made it look like a fiberglass body. So that worked out well. There is a little thing that's kind of fun. So I made a mistake, and you can barely see it in there, but there's a little metal plate on the side of the transmission that looks like an inspection plate. But it's really where I made a mistake and put something in the wrong place. I put a pedal there that didn't belong there. And I'm like, well, that's not going to work. So I just covered the hole up. I tried my first panel job, the fade. That's the first time I tried that. It's okay. It's not great, but it's a first try. So I don't mind, getting in there and doing it, and just seeing how it comes out. And if magazine cars, you do it once and you move on.
On magazine cars, do you always do both sides?
Yeah. Yes, I do. And I've heard the story that they don't. Well, actually, on the doors of the Pierce Arrow, I knew enough not to try both sides.
Yeah.
and it would have been a wobbly mess. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That really gives you a nice rigid box, a rigid platform. Helps you align the doors that do open and close.
You can get away with stuff on magazine cars that you wouldn't normally. Like, I tried using a Molotow pen for the frame on these windows, and if you look close, it's not great. Maybe eventually one day I'll mask them off and make another run at cleaning up the spots.
In all of this for all the years, how did you get started in modeling?
I was at my great-grandma's house, and my parents would drop us off there for the weekend, and they say I was 4. My great-grandma would have to me was a giant toy box that is probably little. And we would dig out whatever, stamped metal toy was in there. And one day I'm going to the bottom, and I found some plastic model cars. And I'd already liked cars, and they'd been built and thrown in there. So most of the pieces were there, and I played with them. And there was a Black Widow and a Long John. And there was enough pieces to the Black Widow that I could figure out how it went. You put the tires on, the engine goes in, maybe the top goes on. And my parents came and picked me up, and they got me a tube of glue and brought me home with a bunch of newspaper and pretty much set me loose. And I just glued that thing together. I had the one head left from it in my parts box for years. I don't know. It's gone now. But it was glued. That valve cover was not coming off of that head. So that kind of started it. And it went to Tom Daniel kits because they were easy to build. They were colorful. They were wild. I love that outrageous styling. And I just kept going. There's a picture you can show that's on my Focus site. It's my bedroom, like in 1978. All cars, filled. Model cars everywhere. My parents built me shelves. I filled them up. And I built by myself. I didn't know anybody else that built models.
Me too.
Yeah. And I'm just plugging along. And, you talked about melting things. I learned about that. I learned that you can't dry a paint job with a light bulb, but you can melt a body. So you too, huh?
Yeah.
So when was the first time you found out there was other people out there going for it?
Like in grade school, tell my friends, oh, I'm building a model, or, they had a model, and they're like, oh, yeah. And then, I blew it up with firecrackers. I'm like, why'd you do that? I can still never understand that concept, because it was like, you put so much time or thought into it. And it's like, wow, I just want to have it on my shelf. Now, of course, the big joke is when someone says, yeah, I blew mine up with firecrackers. It's like, we'll all buy you a beer because everything in our collection just went up like another 2% because there are fewer models out there because of you.
How funny. Yeah, I'm afraid to say that I did that. I remember burning down a Red Baron just to see what happened. And one Sunday afternoon, me and my brother were bored, and we used a beach towel to snap apart a lot of models. But, you put the parts in a box and you get more models. And then that's when you start kit bashing, because you're like, well, I got this cool engine. Let's see what happens.